So this is my thought process under or around Van Zandt Inc. If you look at the history, in 2010, it was actually started under someone's name that was Eric Rothschild, CEO. September 29th, 20.
This marks a major twist in the ongoing legal battle between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. A judge has officially dismissed one of the key complaints, releasing a detailed 100-page ruling explaining the decision. We've gone through the court documents to break down exactly what this means and how it could change everything in this high-profile Hollywood showdown.
Justin Baldoni's legal battle with Blake Lively just took a new turn. On June 9th, a federal judge dismissed his $400 million countersuit against his It Ends With Us co-star and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. Access Hollywood confirmed.
In a shocking twist that takes Hollywood's legal chaos to a whole new level, court documents have uncovered a stunning revelation. Blake Lively may have been secretly communicating with herself through a shell company while manipulating the legal system to access private data. According to filings, Lively allegedly used a shadowy corporate entity called Van Zandt Incorporated to file what appears to be a sham lawsuit in the New York Supreme Court back in September 2024, a case that, incredibly, listed no defendant at all. Legal experts now believe the real motive was to create a legal loophole, allowing subpoenas to be issued for private phone records and communications belonging to Jen Ale, a former employee of PR firm JonesWorks who later joined Wayfair's team. Analysts familiar with the case describe Van Zandt Incorporated as a legal shield, a company allegedly used by Lively to disguise her involvement and gain access to confidential data she later denied to the person it was taken from. This isn't just celebrity scandal, it's a potential abuse of the judicial process that has attorneys and insiders alike questioning whether Blake Lively's tactics crossed the line from aggressive litigation into possible illegal conduct.
Baldoni and his production company Wayfair Studios sued Lively and Reynolds for defamation in January and sought at least $400 million in damages.
In yet another shocking revelation, court filings now suggest that Blake Lively's alleged scheme went even deeper than anyone imagined. Through her shadow company, Van Zandt Incorporated, Lively reportedly subpoenaed Stephanie Jones and JonesWorks, her former PR representatives, for all phone data and records tied to Jen Aberbel, a former employee. What's more alarming is that no one involved was ever notified during the process. Legal observers are calling it one of the most bizarre courtroom maneuvers in recent Hollywood history. The same law firm, it turns out, was representing both Blake Lively and Van Zandt Incorporated, meaning that, for months, Blake's attorneys were essentially talking to themselves in court. Blake Lively literally spoke to herself through her own shell company, said one analyst. Her company's lawyers communicated with her personal legal team, pretending to be opposing sides. It's almost diabolical. But it didn't stop there. Once Blake allegedly obtained the private phone data through Van Zandt, she reportedly invoked a powerful protective order in her ongoing lawsuit against Justin Baldoni and Wayfair. The order included an unusually aggressive confidentiality clause, effectively trapping the victims in a legal catch-22. Blake could use the information she obtained through Van Zandt to strengthen her case, but the affected parties were barred from accessing or using that same evidence in their defense. Now, experts believe they finally understand why Blake Lively fought so hard to limit discovery access in her lawsuit, not to protect her privacy, but to conceal the very methods she used to obtain the evidence in the first place.
According to documents obtained by Access, the judge also dismissed the director's libel lawsuit against the New York Times, in which he accuses the paper of working with Lively to smear him.
The protective order Blake Lively's team secured includes a sweeping confidentiality clause, one that forces anyone accessing the information to first sign a non-disclosure agreement. In practice, this means that even if victims became aware of the data Blake obtained, they couldn't legally use it in their own defense without risking contempt of court charges. It's a strategy designed to silence the opposition while giving Blake the power to cherry-pick what information she wants to use against them, explains a legal analyst familiar with the filings. Even more unsettling are the court documents showing how Blake's team appeared to taunt former employee Jen Abel, whose private phone data was allegedly accessed through the Van Zandt operation. In one filing, Blake's attorneys reportedly told Abel, "We already gave you a copy of this discovery, it's over here in a separate action that doesn't involve you. Some of it's marked confidential, and even though you technically have it, you can't use it." When Abel brought the issue to the court, she pleaded with the judge, saying, "This is her shell company. We need this information, it's our right." This was the method they used to obtain the discovery. Perhaps most shocking of all, Blake's own attorneys have allegedly admitted that the Van Zen lawsuit was used to obtain discovery materials, yet in the same breath, they continue to argue that Van Zen has no connection to any litigation involving Blake Lively or the Wayfair parties. Legal experts say that contradiction could be a serious red flag, one that raises new questions about how far Blake's legal team went in blurring ethical and procedural boundaries inside a system that's supposed to uphold fairness and transparency.
We know in 2010, Blake and Ryan met on the set of Green Lantern. This is what I believe. In 2010, Eric Rothschild was put on paperwork as CEO, but it was actually Ryan and Blake that were running the company. And how do you come out as starting a Van Zandt company, Vancouver and Tarzana or whatever it is, the place that Blake Lively's from?
According to court filings, Blake Lively continues to insist that she isn't personally involved in the shell company's actions, arguing that Van Zen Incorporated operates independently and that she herself is not a party to any of the related cases. But observers aren't buying it. Blake is saying Blake isn't part of anything, one analyst remarked. Everyone knows Van Zen is Blake. It's a blatant loophole, she's gaming the court. This is the most obvious manipulation of legal process I've ever seen. Throughout these increasingly complex maneuvers, Blake's legal team has maintained a highly aggressive stance, accusing Jen Abel and Wayfair of weaponizing the proceedings to fuel what they describe as a negative media campaign against Blake and her associates. In a particularly tone-deaf court filing, Van Zen Incorporated, Blake's alleged shell company, claimed that Abel's motion appears to be yet another attempt by the Abel and Wayfair parties to use this legal proceeding to continue their negative media campaign against Blake Lively and her associates. To legal analysts, this pattern is all too familiar. It reflects what they describe as a victim narrative strategy, where Blake positions herself as the one being unfairly targeted, even as her team allegedly uses aggressive and deceptive legal tactics behind the scenes. Blake is always the victim, one observer noted with irony. It's pretty despicable, telling Jen she has access to her communications when they know she doesn't. Her entire phone was stolen. Court filings also hint that this may be part of a broader, coordinated campaign involving PR executive Stephanie Jones, a longtime associate of Lively's. Jones, who is embroiled in her own separate legal disputes, has reportedly petitioned Meta and Pinterest to identify the people running social media accounts critical of her, claiming they're part of a conspiracy connected to Justin Baldoni's team.
How do you come out as starting a company with your girlfriend when you are married? Your girlfriend you met on the Green Lantern, and when she's in a long-term relationship. But what I've been reading is to have someone like Eric on the paperwork in 2010, it's because you want secrecy. You want to keep things private.
Meanwhile, Stephanie Jones, the PR executive closely linked to Blake Lively, now faces accusations of improperly accessing and sharing Jen Abel's private communications. According to an industry insider, what's unfolding looks less like coincidence and more like a carefully coordinated legal strategy. "I think they crafted this scheme," the source explains, where Blake, on one hand, would sue Wayfair and Jen, while Stephanie filed her own lawsuit against Jen and Melissa. That way, both could claim to be victims of the same supposed conspiracy. I have a hard time believing this wasn't coordinated. The tactic appears designed to flip the narrative, creating the illusion that Blake Lively and Stephanie Jones are both targets of a smear campaign, when in reality, court evidence suggests they may have been working together to silence or discredit former associates who fell out of favor. What began as a straightforward sexual harassment allegation against Justin Baldoni has now morphed multiple times. Initially described as a case of serious misconduct, Blake later softened her tone in interviews while still pressing ahead with legal action. Now, in a striking shift, Jones's own filings reference misogynistic and toxic behavior on set, a noticeable departure from the original allegations of sexual harassment and assault. It's interesting how they're reframing the story, one legal analyst observed. First, it was sexual misconduct. Then it became harassment. Now it's just toxic and misogynistic behavior. The allegations keep evolving, which makes it increasingly difficult to determine what, if anything, actually happened on the set of It Ends With Us that justifies such an aggressive legal and PR war.
The filing also states that Judge Louis J. Lyman did note that Baldoni's legal team can amend the allegations relevant to the claims of interference with contract and breach of implied covenant by June 20th.
Blake couldn't apologize and admit she was a jerk to Kirsty, the director, and that's where everything exploded, claims one insider close to the It Ends With Us production. According to multiple sources, what could have ended as a minor on-set disagreement instead spiraled into a full-scale legal war after Blake allegedly refused to take responsibility for her behavior. Rather than owning the moment, she reportedly recast herself as the victim of retaliation, triggering a wave of lawsuits, shell company maneuvering, and coordinated PR campaigns that now span multiple states and courtrooms. What began as a creative dispute has metastasized into a complex legal web involving confidential subpoenas, protective orders, and conspiracy allegations. Insiders say the effort was not just about reputation management, it was about control. She pivoted fast, one analyst said. Instead of apologizing, she turned the tables and weaponized the legal system to make herself untouchable. The entire ordeal now sits in the hands of Judge Lyman, whose upcoming ruling could determine the trajectory of the case and perhaps set a dangerous precedent for how celebrities exploit the justice system. If the judge even buys this for a minute, I'll lose faith in the system entirely, one legal observer stated bluntly. If he entertains it, it's over. Any belief that there's real justice left in Hollywood goes out the window. The implications extend far beyond Blake Lively. This case has become a litmus test for accountability in the entertainment industry, exposing how wealth and influence can be weaponized to silence critics and manipulate public perception. By operating through shell corporations, enforcing strategic confidentiality clauses, and enlisting high-powered PR allies, celebrities can build impenetrable legal shields, all while waging aggressive smear campaigns behind the scenes. At its core, this controversy isn't just about Blake Lively, it's about how fame, power, and privilege can distort justice itself.
You want to keep who's actually behind it private from the media. What better reason than an affair? And I've also found information that the reason you might switch it to put Blake's name back on or officially on is to keep the paperwork nice and clean because a new project's coming up.
They're dragging this out, betting that their biased judge, who's already made up his mind, will ignore what Jen Abel endured and just toss the case, claims one insider. They really think they've already won. The delays and legal gymnastics have sparked serious concerns about attorney ethics and judicial oversight. Legal experts warn that if lawyers can help clients talk to themselves through shell companies while blocking victims from accessing their own evidence, it represents a dangerous erosion of fairness in the justice system. Amid the procedural chaos, the human toll is mounting. Jen Abel, whose private messages and phone data were allegedly taken without her consent, now faces the unimaginable. She can't even access the very evidence stolen from her. It feels sadistic, one observer remarked. No one should have to fight against a system this rigged. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni continues battling to rebuild his reputation after enduring months of public attacks and strategic leaks. Insiders say Blake Lively's team remains unyielding, wielding both legal and media power to keep control of the narrative regardless of the ethical cost. Still, many believe the exposure of the Van Zen Incorporated shell company scheme could become a turning point. Legal analysts note that judges typically take a hard stance on parties who manipulate court processes through deception and bad faith tactics. If Judge Lyman concludes that Blake's team has abused the system, the consequences could be severe, from sanctions to the dissolution of protective orders shielding her from scrutiny. As one legal commentator put it, this isn't just about Blake Lively anymore. It's about whether the courts will allow the rich and powerful to play both sides and still call it justice. Blake Lively's team insists they're simply defending her reputation, yet ironically, their actions seem to mirror the very behavior they've accused others of. What began as a straightforward harassment claim has unraveled into a labyrinth of legal manipulation, showcasing just how far some celebrities will go to control the narrative and silence dissent. For an actress once known as America's sweetheart, Blake's courtroom tactics paint a starkly different picture, one of cold calculation and ruthless determination to win, no matter the cost. If you're going to be in this industry, "You need a thick skin," says one insider. "You can't try to destroy someone's life after they fire you and still call that integrity. That's not professionalism, that's vengeance." As the case drags on, it's becoming clear that the court of public opinion may be far harder for Blake to influence than the one she's facing legally. Every new revelation chips away at her carefully curated image, exposing a side of her that many fans never expected to see, one allegedly willing to bend rules, weaponize power, and blur the line between victim and aggressor. In the end, whether or not the judge sides with her, Blake Lively may already be losing the one battle that matters most: the fight to protect her public reputation.